The ocean doesn't care if you're a pirate, a king's sailor, or a desperate man chasing treasure. When the wind turns sharp as broken glass and waves freeze mid-spray, survival becomes the only prize worth fighting for. Yet, centuries before insulated jackets or diesel heaters, pirate crews somehow endured nights when the sea itself felt like a grave. No fire, no furnace, just oil, cloth, and the power of the wind. What they discovered wasn't magic. It was one of the smartest survival tricks ever pulled off at sea. Pirates loved the tropics in stories, but real piracy stretched far beyond the Caribbean. Ships ventured through the North Atlantic, raided in icy channels, and hunted merchant vessels in brutal, freezing waters. The temperature could drop so low that ropes stiffened like iron. Sails froze solid, and a breath of wind cut straight through wool coats. Below deck, it wasn't much better. Damp, smoky, and often filled with stale air. Fire was too dangerous to use freely on wooden ships soaked in tar and lined with hemp ropes. A single spark could turn a vessel into a floating inferno. That meant no fires for warmth. So how did they fight the cold? They turned to materials they already had: oil, cloth, and an understanding of the wind. Every sailor knew oil was life at sea. It kept ropes supple, lamps burning, and food from spoiling. But it also had another secret use: protection from the cold. When crews rubbed animal or fish oil into their coats, hats and gloves, they accidentally created primitive oilskins. These greasy layers repelled water and blocked wind, trapping pockets of warm air against the skin. The principle was simple, but brilliant. Cold kills through two things: wetness and wind. Stop both, and you survive longer. Pirates might not have known the science of thermodynamics, but they understood what worked. An oil-soaked cloak stayed drier and heavier, yes, but it kept the sea's icy bite out. That difference could mean surviving a night watch, or freezing before dawn. Here's where the genius comes in. On deck, the wind was the real executioner. Standing in open air with salt spray freezing around, you could strip away body heat faster than any blizzard on land. So the crew turned the ship itself into a weapon against the cold. They studied how the wind hit the sails and where the ship's structure blocked the worst gusts. Then, using tarps, spare sailcloth, and even damaged rigging, they built small windbreaks, makeshift shelters where warmth could build. Inside these corners, the air stayed calmer, and their oil-cloaked garments trapped just enough heat to make it bearable. It wasn't comfortable, but it was survival. The trick wasn't to fight the wind, but to outsmart it, turning a deadly force into an accidental ally. The trick was surprisingly simple, almost laughably so. Take a thick wool or canvas cloth, rub it with lamp oil or leftover cooking grease until it's damp but not dripping, then wrap it around your body or pull it tight across a frame as a barrier. The oil sealed the tiny gaps between fibres, turning cloth into a primitive windproof shell. When pirates huddled together behind these makeshift shields, their body heat collected in that small pocket of air, turning freezing decks into livable zones. The same trick was used for hammocks or bedrolls below deck. Some crews even draped oil-treated tarps over cargo or sleeping quarters to trap warmth overnight. It wasn't a heater. It was insulation born from pure necessity. Movies often show pirates drinking rum around roaring fires, but the truth was much colder. Open flames were forbidden on most ships except for the galley, and even that was enclosed in a brick-lined box called a caboose. A spark near sails or tarred rigging could doom everyone aboard. So, instead of fighting the cold with fire, sailors learned to avoid it altogether. They relied on body heat, wind management, and oily coatings to preserve warmth. Every pirate knew that dry and windproof meant survival. They'd rather smell like fish oil than freeze stiff in the rigging. Life aboard a pirate ship was already a gamble. Disease, battles, mutiny, but the cold added another layer of cruelty. The ones who lasted weren't just the strongest, they were the most inventive. This heating trick wasn't unique to pirates, it was common across the sailing world. But pirates perfected it out of sheer desperation. Without a navy's resources or supply ports, they learned to make every scrap count. An old sail became a blanket. Leftover oil from cooking became waterproofing. The ship's structure itself became a wind shelter. That adaptability is what kept them alive when others perished. When you oil fabric, you change how heat moves. Dry cloth lets air and moisture pass through easily, so wind strips heat from the skin. Oil fills the gaps between fibres, blocking airflow and water penetration. The result is a layer that traps warm air and stops evaporative cooling. Even modern survival gear uses the same concept. Outer shells that block wind, inner layers that hold warmth. Pirates were doing this in the 1600s without even knowing the science behind it. They were, in effect, wearing early versions of waterproof parkas, made with nothing but lamp oil and old canvas. What can we learn from pirates freezing in the North Atlantic? The lesson isn't just historical, it's practical. Staying warm isn't about how much heat you have, but how little you lose. Modern explorers, sailors and survivalists follow the same core rules. Keep dry, block the wind, and trap air around your body. The pirate oilcloth wind trap trick proves that understanding your environment beats any fancy gear. With the right mindset, a few scraps of cloth and some clever thinking, even the coldest wind can be turned to your advantage. In the end, the pirate heating trick wasn't about comfort. It was about endurance. Those men weren't chasing warmth. They were chasing survival, fighting against nature with nothing but their hands and wits. The oil, the cloth, the way they shaped the wind. These were weapons as real as cutlasses and cannons, and that's what makes their story worth remembering. They didn't just survive the cold, they beat it on its own terms. If you enjoyed uncovering this hidden side of pirate life, hit that subscribe button and share this story with someone who loves history told raw and real. Because out here, on the forgotten war fronts, we don't just tell stories. We bring lost survival secrets back to life.